The flashing red and blue lights pierced the still morning air as 3 police cruisers roared into my construction site like they were busting a drug den. I paused mid-swing with my hammer, wiped my brow, and watched as officers fanned out with hands near their holsters. Behind them, stomping forward with the self-importance of someone who'd just brought down a kingpin, was Brenda Harrington, president of the Maplewood Estates HOA. "There he is," she shrieked, jabbing a manicured finger in my direction. "That's the squatter building illegally on HOA-protected land." The lead officer, tall with silver at his temples, approached cautiously. "Sir, I'll need to see some identification and any permits for this construction." I slowly reached into my back pocket and pulled out a folder I now carried religiously ever since Brenda's campaign of nonsense began. "Officer Davidson," I said, eyeing his name tag. "This is a misunderstanding. This is my land." Brenda stormed forward, her face tomato red. "He's lying! The entire lakefront belongs to Maplewood Estates. I have documents." Davidson raised a palm to quiet her, then started flipping through my papers. His eyebrows crept higher with every page. Deed, survey, water rights going back to 1922. His professional frown morphed into something bordering on a smirk. "Ma'am," he said slowly, turning to Brenda, "these documents show this gentleman owns not only this lock, but the entire riverfront from mile marker 7 to 12, including all access rights to the lake." It all began 3 months ago, when I finally started building the cabin my grandfather had dreamed of on the 20 acres he left me, prime lakefront, untouched since he bought it in the 1950s. The property bordered Maplewood Estates, a posh gated development that popped up in the 90s, but our land had never been part of their HOA. This was going to be my retreat, a solar-powered off-grid getaway with a dock for my little boat and a deck that wrapped around like a hug from the forest. After decades behind a screen as a software engineer, I was ready for some peace. Then came day 2 of construction. I was staking out the foundation when a golf cart kicked up a cloud of dust, zooming toward me like I had set fire to the woods. Out stepped Brenda Harrington, with the fury of a general storming enemy lines. "Excuse me?" she barked. "What do you think you're doing?" "Building a cabin," I said calmly, already annoyed. "Can I help you?" "You can't build here. This is HOA land. You need board approval." I kept my voice even. "This isn't HOA land. It's mine." She actually laughed, like I'd told her I invented gravity. "All lakefront property here is HOA controlled. I don't know what scam you're trying to pull, but I'm shutting this down." That moment triggered a 3-month war. Every morning, I'd find new cease and desist notes duct taped to my gear. She even printed her own stop work signs and planted them like she was claiming territory. I started catching her on my trail camps, sneaking around at odd hours, snapping photos, taking measurements. Once, I found her standing inside the poured foundation, clipboard in hand. "Brenda," I called, making her flinch, "you're trespassing. Again." "I'm documenting HOA violations. The noise is disturbing our residents." "The closest house is half a mile away, and it's 10 a.m. on a Tuesday." "We'll see what our lawyers say," she huffed, retreating to her golf cart. The lawyers never came, but the antics escalated. She brought along board members to intimidate me with silent stares and whispering at imaginary boundary lines. One day, she introduced a young guy in a polo shirt as the HOA's environmental compliance officer. I'm pretty sure it was just her nephew. But the final straw? The morning I arrived to see she'd installed her own signs. Private property, Maplewood Estates HOA. That's when I started carrying every document I had. That day, I told her, these signs need to come down. "Make me," she snapped. "I've called the real authorities this time. The police are coming to remove you." Which brought us to the moment Officer Davidson handed back my papers, turned to Brenda, and said, "Ma'am, by these documents, you've been trespassing on this man's land for 20 years. I unfurled the old survey map across the hood of the cruiser. My grandfather owned everything from this marker to this one, including the trail, the beach, and your so-called boat launch." Brenda's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The other officers exchanged glances and smirks. One mumbled something about another HOA Karen, and they all nodded. "But we maintain that beach,"
Brenda protested. "We paid for the sand, the picnic tables." "Which you placed on my land without permission. That's not maintenance. That's vandalism." Officer Davidson handed me back my documents. "Sir, would you like to press trespassing charges? This appears to be a pattern." I paused, watching Brenda's face shift from red to sheet white. "Not today, officer, but I'll be putting up proper markers and trespassing signs. Anyone crossing them gets prosecuted." "You can't do this," Brenda shrieked. "The whole community depends on that beach. Property values will plummet." "Should have thought of that before trying to steal land," I said with a shrug. The officers left after warning her about filing false reports. She stood frozen, clutching her clipboard like a life raft as the neighborhood gossip engine roared to life. By sunset, my phone was ringing non-stop. Residents, board members, neighbors, all suddenly eager to talk about lake access. By the time the story reached the far end of the subdivision, I apparently owned half the county and was building a shopping mall. The next morning, 15 HOA folks showed up at my site, thankfully unarmed. A man in a golf shirt approached. "Mr. Peterson, I'm Jack Sullivan, Vice President of the HOA. We'd like to talk about lake access." I didn't stop working. "Not much to discuss. It's mine. Always has been." Jack nodded, throwing Brenda a dagger look. "We understand that now. We're hoping for an arrangement. The community's used the beach for decades. And I've paid taxes on it just as long. Funny how no one cared when you were building on my land." A woman chimed in. "We didn't know. Brenda told us the HOA owned everything up to the water." Brenda was shrinking by the second. "We're holding an emergency meeting tonight. Brenda, you'll prepare a full report." Word from my neighbor Tom was that the meeting was chaos. Residents demanded answers. Brenda tried blaming the old board, the county, even me. No one bought it. The vote of no confidence? Unanimous, except for Brenda's lone vote. She was stripped of the presidency, and Jack took over. But her spiral wasn't done. 3 days later, I started building a split-rail fence with posted signs, all per my lawyer's advice. That night, Brenda made her last bad decision. My trail cam caught her at 2 a.m. trying to yank the fence out with her Mercedes. She ended up dragging 50 feet of fencing and got stuck in a ditch. This time, I pressed charges. The judge was unimpressed. When he saw the footage of her trespassing streak, his tone turned icy. "Mrs. Harrington," he said, peering over his glasses, "your behavior is shocking for someone in a position of community leadership, or former leadership." She was fined $12,000, ordered to pay for my fence, sentenced to 200 hours of community service, and hit with a restraining order, 500 feet from my land. $12,000? She gasped. "But I was protecting the community." The judge brought down the gavel. "You were protecting your ego, Mrs. Harrington. Consider yourself lucky I'm not adding jail time."